Yo, what's going on, everybody? As you can see by the title of this video, I am going to be taking my first stab at an early rankings of the top 10 fantasy quarterbacks for 2019. This is for fantasy football, if you play with your friends in leagues. Also for DFS, because it's important to do some research beforehand, so you can get a little bit of an edge over the competition. If you do some extra research, know like the new pieces that teams have, the new weapons that quarterbacks have, give you a little bit of an edge, especially with football being such a big sport for DFS. So let's get right into it. Please like and subscribe, and you can also comment your top 10 rankings after you watch this video or before to see which ones we agree at, which ones we disagree at. But starting off, number one has to be Patrick Mahomes, an absolute no-brainer here. Led the league with 50 passing touchdowns in his first season, taking over for Alex Smith. Looked amazing under Andy Reid. That offense was electric. He had 11 more passing touchdowns than any other quarterback in the league. And this offseason, he might be losing a major weapon in Tyreek Hill with a saga going on with him. He's probably going to be suspended. But this is the same team that lost Kareem Hunt midseason last year, and they did not miss a beat at all with Damian Williams stepping in and playing as good of a job, if not better, than what Kareem Hunt could have done. Because Damian Williams also played a huge factor in the passing game. But anyway, Mahomes, their offense is still very high flying. He has a tremendous weapon in tight end Travis Kelce, the best fantasy tight end in the league. Him and Zach Ertz, the top two by far. He also has mobility, unlike some other quarterbacks in the league. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, a little under 300 rushing yards last season. Something that's very important for a quarterback to be successful is having a rock-solid offensive line. He definitely has that. With it's ranked 6th by PFF in pass blocking. And last season, he was the most consistent quarterback for fantasy, 0 bust games, and finished first in consistency. So you got to go Patrick Mahomes as your number one. Number 2, I have Andrew Luck. So Andrew Luck is finally healthy last season, and he looked amazing. A healthy Andrew Luck is a nightmare just because he's so smart and will just dissect everything the defensive coordinators are giving him. This will break down everything that they have planned for him mid-game, makes great adjustments on the fly. Had 39 passing touchdowns. This Colts offense throws the ball a ton. They also do play fast. That led 39 touchdowns, was second behind Mahomes. Frank Reich was amazing, mentoring Luck and just guiding him the great path. The offense was great. He has a ton of great weapons. Devin Funchess gives him yet another red zone threat alongside Eric Ebron, who finally looks like the tight end that everybody expected out of him. Did not pan out in Detroit, but since he's been in Indianapolis, Frank Reich has made a huge plan for him to catch touchdown passes. So he has a great speed guy in T.Y. Hilton, and he has great just possession touchdown tight ends. And Ebron, Doyle, and Funchess is a big guy that can grab you a touchdown in the red zone. So it's a top 10 offensive line as well. He has a stout running game. Everything looks good for Andrew Luck to continue his successful season after last year. So I love him as my second. Number 3, we're going to go Deshaun Watson. So the thing that concerns me a bit about Watson is the offensive line. He has a terrible offensive line. He was the most sacked quarterback last season by far in the NFL. Some of that was his fault because he waits too long in the pocket. He's always dancing back there. So hopefully you get a little smarter with that, because when you know your offensive line is weak, you got to get rid of it quick, or else he's going to be banged up, and it's going to be tough for him to survive an entire season getting hit that many times. But anyway, he has a ton of speed with his legs. He had 99 rushing attempts last season, had over 550 rushing yards, and 5 touchdowns. The ability for a quarterback to run is amazing for fantasy and for DFS. He has a tremendous weapon to throw to in DeAndre Hopkins, and if Will Fuller can finally stay healthy, that gives him a tremendous speed guy, as well as Fuller and Deshaun Watson have hooked up great since they've been healthy, since Fuller has been healthy. And there's a lot of room for improvement as well. Watson, he's only 23 years old, and the Houston offense, he only had 26 passing touchdowns, mainly because the Houston offense, they could move the ball from 20 to 20, but ever since when they would get into the red zone, they really struggled to put 6 points on the board. They would always settle for 3 more than not. So hopefully with some better game design, game planning, they'll be able to turn those field goals into touchdowns. So Watson still has a ton of fantasy upside this season. He's going to check in at number 3 for me. Number 4 is going to be Aaron Rodgers. So he was good with the interceptions, only had 2 interceptions last season, but he had a career low QBR at 60.4. Good news for him is that Mike McCarthy is gone. Matt LaFleur is in. At the end of the year, at times last season, it looked like Rodgers and McCarthy were just not on the same page. Now that Rodgers has a new coach and LaFleur, it's a great spot for him to bounce back after a not good 2018. LaFleur has been with a couple different quarterbacks over the past couple seasons, and he's been with some great quarterbacks that have had some great seasons. He was in Atlanta in 2016 when Matt Ryan just really made the name for himself, Matty Ice, and won MVP. And then he was with the Rams in 2017 when Jared Goff exploded after Jared Goff looked like a bust in his rookie year. So LaFleur is a great quarterback coach. He can really just design plays for the receivers and the passing game. It's going to be a big bounce back spot for Rodgers. He still has his main weapon in Devontae Adams. Geronimo Allison, if he's healthy, they just got banged up with a lot of injuries. And finally, hopefully LaFleur will be able to design some plays for Jimmy Graham and get him more involved in the offense, which is something McCarthy was not able to do. So Rodgers, still very accurate. Big bounce back spot for him this year. Number 5, if you live up to the Baker Mayfield hype, this might be a bit soon, but I think 5 is a reasonable projection for him. He just has everything a quarterback needs. He has a tremendous offensive line, number 2 by PFF, a tremendous running game, and he has one of the best wide receiver tandems in the league. Odell Beckham is going to make life really easy for Mayfield. Can just throw the ball up to him. Looks like OBJ is finally motivated. Playing under Eli Manning, OBJ was just, wasn't able to really showcase his talent, but playing with a young, budding superstar in Baker Mayfield, it's going to be a great season for OBJ, so I definitely want to draft him in drafts early. But also, Baker Mayfield's numbers are a little bit skewed because he was stuck with Hugh Jackson for the first 6 weeks, and under Hugh Jackson, Mayfield only had a 60% completion percentage, averaged under 1.5 touchdowns per game in the first 6 weeks. But ever since when they fired Hugh Jackson midseason, Mayfield looked like a completely different quarterback. His completion percentage was over 70%, and he had averaged about 2.5 touchdowns per game. So Mayfield, looking to carry that into, he has another great coach to learn from, has a great offseason to get to know his new personnel. It's the potential to explode for Mayfield. Everybody's on the Browns hype train, and I think it's going to be a great spot for Baker Mayfield. So, number 6, we go with Drew Brees. He's 40 years old. He's getting up there in age, but he still was great last season. Had the highest completion percentage of his career, 75% almost, 74.4. Led the league in passer rating at 115.7. Brees benefits a lot from playing half of his games in the Superdome. Quarterbacks that play in a dome tend to have bigger fantasy games than other quarterbacks, as the dome is more conducive to scoring. I'm not really sure about the science behind it, but it's just the weather. The ball carries more. You're not going to have to play in the cold weather as often. So that's why domes tend to favor quarterbacks and tend to favor scoring. He has 2 electric playmakers still with Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, who's turned into one of the top 5 wide receivers in the league. Also, with the departure of Mark Ingram, Drew Brees might have to throw the ball a little more. Last season, the Saints did rely on the running game a little bit heavily with Kamara and Ingram, but with Mark Ingram gone, hopefully Brees will throw the ball a little more because he can definitely add to the yards. Only threw for under 4,000 yards last season, but he still was great with the touchdowns, interceptions. Everything is still off the charts for him, and he finally gets a great tight end to throw to as well with Jared Cook. The acquisition, it's a big-time free agency acquisition compared to the tight ends that they were throwing out last year with Watson was injured a lot of the time, and Austin Carr and those other guys. So he finally has a stable tight end in Jared Cook. Number 7, we have Matty Ice, Matt Ryan. So he's going to benefit, another quarterback that's going to benefit from a coaching change, getting a new voice in there. Steve Sarkisian is gone. The offensive line has improved for him. He has tremendous weapons in Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, who in his second year should improve even more. He is another guy that benefits by playing half of his games in a dome. He was tremendous last season, even though the Falcons' record wasn't good. Mainly the main blame for that was the defense, but he still threw for third in the league in passer yards last season, 4,924, threw 35 touchdowns. He was just great, and the Falcons are also a pass-heavy team, so Matt Ryan, I think, is going to be in for another big season for fantasy, and hopefully the defense and all the other components hold up because looks like they can make some moves this year. Number 8 is going to be Russell Wilson. So the only reason he's not higher on my list is because the Seattle Seahawks have turned into a ground and pound team. The Seahawks led the NFL in rushing yards last season, and they were second only to Baltimore in rushing attempts at 534. The Seahawks were dead last in passing attempts last year at just 427. So Wilson's not out there chucking the ball 30 to 35, 40 times like some other quarterbacks like Rodgers and Luck. And Mahomes, he's just gonna kind of just be patient. The offense, they just pick their spots to throw the ball. Even though he threw dead last in passing attempts, he was still third with touchdowns and 35, tied for third. So he's very efficient in the red zone. They tend to score touchdowns, and it tends to be because of Russell Wilson. So he should still remain a top 10 fantasy quarterback, even though he's not going to be throwing the ball a ton because Seahawks are really motivated into the ground, into the rushing attack, and they have a bunch of great backs in Seattle. Number 9 is going to be Carson Wentz. So once again, finished the season last year injured, just like 2017. The knee and back injuries ended his season early. He just didn't look the same as he did in 2017 before he got that torn ACL. But this is the first offseason he has since that torn ACL to recover, go through OTAs, minicamp, preseason. Really just kind of just take it by step. Might have been rushed into his return last year. He has great weapons to throw to. The acquisition of DESHAWN Jackson gives him a speed guy who will stretch the field, and he has a great possession receiver in Alshon Jeffrey. Also has one of the best tight ends in the league in Zach Ertz, so he has great pieces. And the pieces are in place for him to really bounce back into that 27 form where he was going to be the MVP before he got hurt. So Carson Wentz checks in at number 9. And number 10 is going to be Cam Newton. So Newton is another guy that got, just like Carson Wentz, injuries derailed his season. The shoulder injury just really limited him in the second half. He was shut down for the final 2 games of the year. Just wasn't able to throw the ball more than like 20 yards when his shoulder, ever since he suffered that shoulder injury. But he still has, looks to be finally healthy, hopefully. He has a great wide receivers to throw to, a couple young guys in Curtis Samuel and DJ Moore. And he has one of the best running backs, dual threat running backs in Christian McCaffrey. He also has a lot of mobility. He's going to run. If he has a chance to run, he's definitely going to run. And even though he is a bit reckless with the interceptions at times, he's going to make up for it with the legs. So Cam Newton looking to bounce back after the injuries really just cut his season short last season. After the Panthers did get off to a good start and look really poised to make the playoffs, just wasn't meant to be for them. So those are the top 10 for me. And the guys on the bubble are going to be Ben Roethlisberger. I just want to see how their offense is. I mean, it's going to be a really different offense without Antonio Brown. They're going to need some other guys to step up because if no other receiver steps up besides Juju, then teams will probably just double Juju and make it difficult for Roethlisberger. Also, Roethlisberger has been very bad on the road over the past couple seasons. So he's the reason why he's not in my top 10. Dak Prescott is also on the bubble for me. He's going to have a good weapon this time for the whole season with Amari Cooper, has the best running back, one of the best running backs in the league, and Zeke Elliott. So Prescott also has a chance to move into the top 10 if he really improves on some of his accuracy and his touchdowns, because he's another guy that can also just change the game with his legs and get you like rushing touchdowns and get you like 50, 60 rushing yards a game. And then Phillip Rivers and Jared Goff, both guys that are on the bubble. I think both can have good seasons, but for fantasy, I think there's some other guys that I would take over them in the top 10. So that's my list. Let me know your list. You can post your top 10 in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you guys did like it, then I will probably make some more videos about like the top 10 running backs, top 10 wide receivers, tight ends, defenses as we gear up for the 2019 season. So that's all for the video. Thanks for watching, and see you all next time.